you're good to go.
All right. What's up? What's up? Um, I think I'll begin with overview. So
Yeah.
a basic overview. Um, I mean, so as you probably know, doesn't have a dash, right? She has a hover dash instead. Um, this is both her biggest strength and her biggest weakness. Um, because although it does give her instant access to overhits, right? SGS, JK, SGH. It does mean that her neutral is fairly unorthodox, um, and it it poses a lot of limitations because of that. So this is basically her defining feature, is the fact that she can hover dash, right? Her dash block is pretty bad, right? Because if you block stuff in the air, your opponent is plus. So it is, of course, gives her mix, so that's why you play her. Um, Besides that, um, she is extremely strong when she has meter. She has access to very YOLO options with meter, right? Uh, she could do dive into RC, which gives her instant access to mix, right? If you block this, she could do either walk up low or she could do JS. She can do whatever she wants. And of course, if you get hit, she gets a full combo. So she has dive, she has H dive, right? She has stroke, um, head stroke. So she has a lot of options to kind of YOLO her way in, and also HCLRC, which kind of like is a full screen, I guess, projectile um that is generally fairly unsafe because you can just run under it, but if you see it, um, you can get plus frames. So she's extremely strong with meter. And this matters if you're trying to fight, because you generally don't want to let her get to a point where she has meter, because once she has meter, she's actually extremely strong. Oh yeah, she also has super, which is extremely plus, and has a huge hitbox. It's also, I think, 6 frames of startup, if I remember correctly. So
That's
yeah, very
fast.
strong option. Um, and for weaknesses, of course, we all know, as I already mentioned, her dash poses makes her approach fairly, how to say, I guess it's not, I would say linear, right? Because she kind of has to commit. If she wants to dash block, she has to commit to like the startup, which is 10 frames, and then she has to land. And this, as she is specifically, she is vulnerable for 10 frames after dashing, so it's fairly committal. Um, and this makes her approach fairly difficult. Not fairly difficult, but fairly unorthodox, because she has to do weird stuff like dash into stroke, right? Or she has the dive, so she can jump out of it to do this. So she has to really try hard to like. I mean, I guess not try hard, but she has to do some weird stuff to vary it up. So as if you're fighting, it is very important to be able to check her dash. Um, Usually you want to have something that is fast. Um, well, I guess I'll go over it once I go into neutral, but just know that generally this is a weakness because if you get hit, if you get counter hit especially, while in the air, even if the opponent presses 5P or something, they usually get a full comp. They could usually go into close slash, they could get um, they can get a knockdown usually. Uh, so it makes just dashing a sort of risky thing to do. Um, for and in terms of offense, of course, her strength is being able to mix, right? Having a lot of mix options. But her block swings are fairly weak. So generally, if you block a mix, it's generally speaking, it's the end of her turn, right? You block this, she's minus. She could do kind of like a mind game off of this. I'll go over, but especially off of the low string, if you block this, she's -7. This can be spaced to be safe. Like this right here, most 5Ks will whiff. I mean 2Ks. But generally, her block strings are fairly unsafe if she wants to commit. And as a result, she has to be constantly trying to reset her pressure, right? Instead of finishing her block string by doing like dashes like this. And this leaves huge gaps in her pressure, which you can match up. And I'll go over offense in more detail. And I think that's generally it for the overview. I guess I think the first thing I'll go over is before going into neutral and offense, which is the things that I want to spend the most time on. I'll go over round start. Her round start, I would say the option that you need to worry about the most is 2S. The reason you want to worry about it the most because it's 10 frames. It has a little bit of a low profile, not a lot, but the reason you want to, it's the thing you need to worry about the most is it takes you to the corner and it gets her Oki. And this is generally the thing players will want to do the most because the reward is so big. It's a fast button. Generally, you need to have an option to call it out, depending on the character. But generally, you don't want to be counter hit by this. On regular hit, she doesn't get a lot. For it doesn't even combo into stroke. She can confirm if they're standing. She can do this, but regular hit is not a lot, and if it gets blocked, it's whatever. So getting regular hit or blocking it is it's not a big deal. You specifically don't want to get counter hit by it. So if you're fighting round start, you want to be trying to play around 2S. She also had like 2H, but it's slightly slower, and the final result is about the same. But yeah, this I would say is the biggest reward round start she has. Like the biggest reward, but also that has like fairly good coverage. It beats a lot of options. And what was I gonna say? Let me check my notes. Oh yeah. So you could think of it sort of like Nago DP round start, right? Basically, if you get hit by it, he kills you, right? He breaks the wall. He takes off like 60% of your life. So it's like the option that you want to play around when you play against Nago, right? With Jacko, it's her 2D. Counter hit 2D. Does a ton of damage, takes you to the corner where Jacko can get set up minions, and it's a very bad situation. And for it's not as extreme as something like Nago DP, where you actually die if you get hit by it, but it is definitely one of her biggest rewards. Because like I said, she takes you to the corner and gets the safe jump, gets whatever she wants to do. So getting hit by it is that's why I'm focusing so much. You generally want to be trying to play around this. So try to not pick options that specifically lose to 2S. You might want to lab your like common round start and see that it doesn't get counter hit. Like a lot of 2Ks, for example, they will be fine because it'll whiff and this will whiff punish, which means you can only go into Astro. So getting regular hit is fine. Just don't want to get counter hit. Besides that, turn off the counter hit. Very common. Other common round starts she has is, of course, she has 2K, 5K. And very common round start that is pretty good is jump into dive. The reason we do this is if you press almost any grounded button, this will whiff punish it. And she gets okay, not the best okay, but she gets a safe jump. So it's really good reward. Not the best, but it's pretty good. And to call this out, you generally don't want to be pressing buttons. You just kind of want to walk back. And if you block it, she's minus. She has a mind game, which I will go into. But the best thing you can do is make it whiff, because if it whiffs, it actually recovers really fast. But if you're ready for it, you can definitely whiff punish it. So you want to make it whiff, and either whiff punish or just start you off and just run up close touch or something. Don't want to let her get away with this. Yeah. What else? Oh yeah. Of course she does have 6 speed, right? She has a really good 6 speed, so but it's generally something to call out like specific options. And then the other unique round star you want to watch for is ATL, which is fairly niche, but it might come up depending on the character you play. For example, if Happy Chaos tries to do, it's pretty good against Happy Chaos because, for example, if he tries to curse, the ATL will smoke it. If he tries to backdash into a button, it'll smoke it. If he does something like 2S or most 2Ss, HCL is actually instant high profile, so it goes over a lot of things. Although it doesn't win, it prevents her from being whiff punished or punished, so just getting hit, because it's instantly it goes over lows. Not only lows but lower hitting moves. So that's gonna depend on the matchup. Not every matchup she will use it, but if she does use it, you either just want to. It's 11 frames of startup, so you either press a button that's faster than that, that can hit it, or you just run. Ino can't run under ATL. She's one of the two characters who can't run under ATL, but most likely your character can run under it. You just run forward. Dash block is very good, so you just run. Run start dash block. Ino can't do it, but you do this. Enter crouch block, and you can confirm if she did it. And if she did it, you can whiff punish, and it's counter hit, save, and recovery, so you can kill it. And I think that generally covers round start. Any questions?
I don't think so on round start stuff.
Yeah.
That seems pretty straightforward. I would hate to get smoked by round start HCL. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like not very high reward because she doesn't get Oki. The most she can get, well, not the most, but the safest thing she can do is just set up note. She could safely set up note, but she doesn't really get Oki, right? Yeah, it was set to mash on wake up, so
Oh well,
demonstrated why
I guess
it's
I
not that strong.
do have a question for round start. Are there as far as like more like passive round starts, like if you're trying to do like a micro walk back into like a whiff punish or something like that, what is your general kind of go to?
Is Eno?
Yeah,
Like
as
walk
the
back?
Eno, yeah.
It's generally gonna be 2S. Sometimes it's gonna be R slash. Um, depending on the move. Like yeah, generally it's gonna be walk back 2S. Although her quote unquote walk back with punish is generally not gonna be a walk back, it's gonna be jump into dive. That's generally what she wants to do. Because like I said, on regular hit, this is not very rewarding. At tip range, S-Struck might whiff. And even if it hits, the situation is not that strong. I will go over this. This is actually, she actually gets a mix-up if she has to hit you with a stroke, but it's also fairly, I guess, risky. And once I go over it, you'll get it. But generally, yeah, she doesn't. It's not something she will commonly do. She does have, I guess, 5H, but 5H is pretty slow. She gets a hard knockdown, but it's you're really gonna see anyone using this one. So yeah, that's why you see her doing this, because she gets a safe jump, she gets Oki, and it goes over a lot of buttons, even if they can hit her from like walk back distance. It's basically a universal I jumped over you and I was punished. So this is like her most common, I guess, with punish Ronstar.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I will go over this more when I go over neutral, but don't try to enter this unless you're very confident. Generally, you don't want to enter this because it beats. Because unless you do it early, it's gonna beat 6p, and it's just very hard because it's very fast, right? The moment you see this, it's too late. Just block it. You want to make her whiff. You want to make her miss it. That's generally the tip. But again, I'll go over it in more detail. And I think that's it for round start. Next up, neutral. Um, like I said, because of her overdash, it's very important that your main priority is to be able to check overdash with as little commitment as possible. She can always do this, right? Where she just lands and does S stroke, or she can jump and do like uh, dive. But generally, your priority is always going to be to be able to check hover because block. This is plus. This is something like it depends on height where it hits, but it's generally going to be something like +5 or +6. So she's very plus if you block this, which gives her the ability to mix from neutral, right? If she makes you block this, you have to take a mix, right? So generally you don't want to block it if you have to. I mean, you'd rather block it than get a counter hit. Although she doesn't get the biggest reward mate screen, it's still something you don't want to get hit by. So generally what you want to do is you want to check her either preemptively on reaction. From this distance, you can't do it on reaction. I would say from this distance, like mid range, you can't check it on reaction. You do get counter hit by the time you see this, unless I guess maybe some people have really good reaction and can do it. But generally speaking, in the mid range, you want to be trying to throw out stuff preemptively, and the stuff you want to do to check. There are two main moves that are very good in neutral against you. Fast moves that can check hover, so 5p, 5k. For a character, it's gonna depend, but generally 5p is pretty good, 5k is pretty good. You don't want to be using 5k, I mean 2k against Xeno, generally speaking, and like lower, like 2s, with some exceptions. Because I mean, without really short, I'm just gonna go over it.
Mhm.
If I just dash, I'll go over your 2k. So generally, you want a 5p, 2p tends to be pretty good. Depends on the character. Like Testament has a very good 2p. Kai. So those characters, 2p is pretty good. The 5p. The reason you want to have it be a fast button is that if you press it and like I do something cheeky like this, right? I go into stroke and I go under your 5p. Stroke is actually 28 frames of start. It's pretty slow. So assuming we do it on the same time, you'll recover in time to block it. So that's why it's important to use fast moves that can check her hover dash. And like even if it just whiffs, it's impossible to whiff punish on reaction because it's under 20 frames of recovery or something around not of recovery 20 total frames. So the moment I see this, it's too late to whiff punish. So that's the first type of move that's really good against Eno. The second type of move that Eno actually doesn't have is moves that can catch both. Actually, I'll demonstrate it. I'll change to Kai because he actually has a couple of really good examples of moves that are good against Eno. But generally, the other type of move that you want to press against Eno in neutral to check her approaches, to stop her, to keep her out, is moves that can hit both hover and stroke. So Kai is a very good example because he has a couple. He has 6H. So if I record, let me change the button placement so I can have easy access to play.
Yeah, yeah.
Makes it easier. I'm just gonna press 6H a couple times. If you can see, it hits a stroke, right? And Kai can kill it. He can kill me for that. And it also hits. Oh, I counter hit him. Let me try to not. I'm beating him.
Too good for
It's
your
not
own
supposed
good.
to go like this. Okay. Yeah, you can see I can't go over it. Gonna have to time specifically for this recording. Yeah, there you go. So I get counter hit. It hits both options. So I can low profile it and I can high profile it. Of course, I can always uh, air dash over it, but yeah, just the amount of coverage that it has, and obviously, air dash she can anti-air on actually, though it is hard because her air dash is she has varied distance, so she can hold it to go farther, or she can just do a quick one and go into stroke. So she does have that flexibility. Generally, if she's forced to use this, it makes it easier for you. So this is like the second type of move that that's really good against Xeno. And Kai actually has like a button that's both. So a fast button that can check hover, and a button that can cover both stroke and hover in 5K. For some reason, his 5K can hit both. So if I yeah, I'm hitting him, but yeah, there you go. It hits stroke. And from close, yeah, it can hit hover from closer by. So this is like the peak of anti-Eno buttons because it's both a fast button that can check hover and it can cover both hover and stroke. Most characters don't have this. If you do have a button that can cover both, examples of that kind of move would be like Bike into S, Soul to S, whatever. What other move can do this? A couple moves that can do this, but they're like very common. Like Testament could do 6H, which will cover both, but it's it's if Testament whiffs that, it's pretty bad. So more like a hard call it. Misato has like Drunkard. Um, there's a couple others, but generally, um, if you're curious, you can always lab it, right? Just make her do wait. You can do dash hits a stroke and dash gas to see if you have a button that can cover both. If you do, it's really good. If you're wondering, just feel free to ask me. I'll let you know if your character happens to have one of those moves. So generally, this is if you don't have one of those moves, just stick to the Festival Device. Do a fast, hopefully with good range button that can check hover because her hover is the biggest threat. And if you anti-air, with 5P or something, you get to most characters can go into like close sash, and get a knockdown and get a full combo. So, yeah, 5P, 5K, 2P. Those are generally the buttons that you want to be trying to use against and that's generally how you keep her out. And then she has. Let me set the dummy to block. And then just going over her neutral options. Oh, we started already. She has Note. Note sets up I guess, sort of a mind game where, of course, she can control it, right? She can make it go up. She could make it go up and then down, and then up. But generally, yes, she can either cover the air or she can cover the ground. And there's sort of so this is not going to apply to necessarily every but generally the way I approach this is I will usually go either low or just send it straight forward. Some characters have like options that can go under it, so for those I will just send it low. But generally, most of the time I'll just send it forward. And the reason I do this is I try to check what they try to do, how they try to deal with it. Um, Most people will try to jump this. And it's something I'll just send it low just to tell them to jump because I want to see what they try to do. If they try to air dash over it, I have time to 6p it. If they try to neutral jump it, uh, jump. Oh, okay. It's gonna be hard to time it, but basically I can just dash up and I can air throw. Do this from fairly far. Uh, so I would say the the default option that you want to do is it's gonna be something like oh it's gonna be something like this, right? Where you air dash back and put a button. Right? This, right? This prevents her from being able to just dash up and air grab you. I don't know why I'm messing up the air dash back, right? Um, and the way she beats it is by doing. Oh wait, I'm still on Kai. Is by doing does no, and then she does this. This will hit you most people out of doing like air dash back into a button, but she doesn't get a lot of hitting you with HCL, so it's not a big deal. So I would say like the layer one is to do something like this. It also prevents her usually from doing like a dash up into 6H. I mean JH, right? It'll hit her out of it. It's kind of hard to demonstrate with a dummy, but um, yeah, this is generally what you want to do as your layer one, right? You do if doesn't even have to necessarily be air dash back, but you can just do neutral jump, jump back into a button. But air dash back is pretty good because it makes it harder to. It creates more space basically. It makes it harder for her to like call it out. And like I said, the way she calls out people doing like air dash back into a button is to do this. But it's fairly low reward. It's kind of risky. I will generally not do this. And generally I will keep doing a low note until I know for sure they're gonna jump. I've conditioned them absolutely to jump, and then I'm gonna start doing like up. The reason I don't start with this is that if they literally just run at me, I die because I'm counter hit, state, and recovery. Um, so it's not gonna apply. This sort of like approach is not gonna apply to every but generally your layer one you want to be doing air dash back into a button. And if she aims it up, next time you can try to do like run up into and just Void Punisher and just run under it. It's gonna depend on the play the player, see what they like to do, what they like to do when they do they like to dash in after it, which is gonna get beat by this. Do they try to do this? In that case, you can try to like jump over it, make like double jump or something. Some characters or super jump. Um, but this is not as a big deal to call out because it's if you block this, it's not that big of a deal, and if you get hit, it's also not that big of a deal. And don't try to air dash over it because it's very easy to just end there. People trying to air dash over note. You can start air dashing as a call out if you see that it beats what the is doing. Like if they're just blindly rushing it, although she can air grab you if you try to air dash. So it's not a good idea. It's very niche. Don't try to air dash unless you're calling out like something specific the is doing. If they're like, um, I think actually air dash would beat her doing node into HCL. So if she's doing that, you could try to call it out with that. But yeah, it's air dashing over a node is generally gonna be a bad idea. Any questions? I forgot to ask if you guys have any question about that or the part about keeping out.
I don't think so from me. That actually covers. I had a bunch of questions about notes, and I think that you covered basically all of it. Because like the neutral around note and HCL is super important, at least for Testament
Yeah,
in the matchup.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, great to know. I don't know that I covered it. Um, yeah, generally that's the general mind game. There's a little bit more to it, but that's gonna cover it. I we probably cover it for Testament. You can try to cancel it out with Grave Reaper if you have an option that can do that.
Mm.
That's fairly decent. Although she can always like do this, like aim it up. Let's see if we can do this. Like aim it up and then down. It's kind of
Hmm.
tricky. Yeah, like that, and that will that will actually go over moves that can like clash with like the first hit of Grave Reaper, Renson. She can do that. Oh yeah, she also has PK note, which is just note by faster. Uh, and that's the same idea generally applies. So I don't think I need to go over that. Then it generally covers note. Next up it's stroke. Do I go over stroke or do I go over dive? Um, Stroke is easier, so I'll go over that real quick.
Mm.
Stroke is a low profile move. Um, it's low profile for stroke. It's about frame 5. For 8 stroke, it's about frame 8. So it's actually fairly. 8 stroke is actually fairly slow to low profile, which is why it's not gonna be. Oh yeah, I forgot to go over stroke as round start, but um, it's not. Stroke is fairly risky as round start. To beat it, you just don't press a button that she can go under. But even in round start, if she does 8 stroke, against a lot of moves, A-stroke will still lose because it's a little slow to go into low profile, although S-stroke is faster. Um, but generally speaking, yeah. If you block either stroke, you should try to challenge with 2K. S-stroke is -7. Let me. So if you block S-stroke, you can punish it. Um, Most of the time, if I space it right, um, it'll actually make the 2K whiff, and I can sometimes whiff punish it, uh, aka a spacing trap, right? I set up something that seems punishable, but it's punishable. This is fairly rare, and I need to be very aware to actually whiff punish something like 2K. But generally speaking, it's fairly uncommon for it to be spaced out. So you should always be trying to challenge to punish S-stroke. S-stroke is the fast one, right? Um, it's the fast and the short one. And then there's 8 stroke, which is -2. You can't punish it, but you should still be trying to challenge. Um, Although there is a little bit of mind game when it comes to 8 stroke because um, she can she can backdash and make your 2K whiff. Although she doesn't have enough time to actually punish it, but she does get away with being minus on 3, and you just go back to neutral. Uh, but you can actually call it out by just doing a slower button that can reach. So for Kai, it would be something like that. That caught my backdash. You can do like run up flow slash. You can try to do run up grab, which would also beat me just blocking. Um, and we'll catch like the recovery of backdash. But it's a little committal. But of course, if you try to do a slower button, not minus enough that um I'm not that minus, so I can actually beat them. I can actually interrupt you. Um, right. So that's generally the mind game. It's not the most complicated RPS, but there is a little bit of an RPS. If you see the backdashing a lot, just press something like forward slash, try to chase the backdash. Do whatever your character can do that will catch it. But preferably something that's high reward. Um, but just catching it, just calling it out will make her a lot less likely. And then once she starts to try to challenge with like 2K, you can go back to also pressing 2K, uh, and she will get counter hit. So that's kind of like the mind game. The mind game for on your end, it's basically gonna be: am I gonna press 2K, or am I gonna press a slower but farther reaching button that can catch dash? That's basically the. You can also, I guess, always backdash to just disengage from the RPS if you're not feeling like playing RPS. She does have options to call that out, but it's gonna be very risky for her to try to do that. And yeah, that's generally it for S-Stroke. S-Stroke, you should always be trying to punish. As like a layer 1, the default response is always try to press 2K after it. You don't want to let her get away with H-Stroke into 2K. And if she does, even if you can't tell the difference in a real match, like in the moment, you'll get a punish if it's S-Stroke, and you'll prevent her from just pressing buttons immediately without trying to backdash. It's really low risk because even if she does backdash, she doesn't have enough time to whiff punish. I'm not sure which side recovers first. So I would guess it's neutral in terms of advantage. That's generally the idea. Any questions?
This might be something that comes up relevant later too, but in
Mhm.
general, in these situations, because you said the spacing was pretty important, do you recommend FDing against Eno, or is not FDing kind of the play?
Um, yeah, this is something that I will go over in more detail when I
Okay, cool.
talk about offense. But generally speaking, you only want to FD the first hit, or like whatever she hits as a meaty. So,
That makes sense.
um, so like this hit, oh, be back. I have the dummy set to.
What a gamer bot right there.
Yeah, that's what
Oh,
I'm saying.
yeah.
I got
Oh, the
new
mod is
tech. Hold
good.
on.
Let me. Yeah, I had a custom recording. Let me remove this so I don't get humiliated, but by the dummy. But yeah, she gets the like the meaty. It's good to FD that.
Does it
Because
cause
it
like JD
makes
to whiff?
her.
Or
What's up?
could it cause like JD to whiff? Or
Very rarely. It's not common. It can happen. If I hit it like the very tip, it'll sometimes whiff if you FD it, but generally UFD. Let me. Um, Generally UFD to. I wouldn't say lock her out, but make it more difficult for her to do stuff like um, JS into far slash. I'm into close slash. You'll get far slash instead, and I will go into like what close slash is for specifically, but it looks her out of this. At tip, like if she hits it at tip distance, it might make some stuff with. So she's forced to do something like this to call you out for trying to press a button. But this is still plus, so she can. This is gonna be a frame jump. But yeah, it's not gonna make this whiff, but um, it does make her. It also makes like tick throws more difficult because she has to walk so much. So normally you can do like this, which is not a lot that she has to work. But if you FD it, that's instant block. She has to walk enough that you can see it coming. So it does make her tick throws. She might have to do something like this, which I don't know if it's reactable. It might be reactable, but yeah, the ring makes it a little more telegraphed. And she's a lot more susceptible. It's a bigger gap, so she's more susceptible to being mashed on. While without FD, this into grab is something you, for example, you can't 6P out of. She will grab you out of 6P. Of course, you can always mash grabs because of throw invul. But yeah, FD makes her life more difficult in a couple of ways. But it doesn't make a difference. Like after I do this, it generally doesn't make a difference. Like after you FD this, it can make this whiff if I do K dive. Like I always do just okay. Well, I guess it does make it whiff. Yeah, I have to like do this, but generally, yeah. So, but generally, like you're not gonna make. Okay, I'm getting disproven live on TV. So maybe do FD it, but whether it's worth the meter, uh, if you're gonna do it, the most important part is to just FD this. But like I said, it does make oh, this does. Wait. Let me try to knock him down. Let me. Okay, so yeah, if you're 15, I'll basically have to do. What was this thing? I think I have to do JK. Okay, so it does make 6B. So maybe it does if do FDR, but it does cause a problem if you FD S stroke because it does make it unpunishable. So that is issue, but I will go into more detail once I go into offense. But generally, if you're gonna FD it, it's probably not as worth it. The meter use is probably not as worth it to FD beyond it. So generally FD the first hit, and then actually I think you can make the 6B whiff even if you. It's gonna be hard to test, but I think you can make it whiff by just FDing this. But yeah, I'll go over it in more detail.
Perfect.
And then next dive. Okay, so let's go over dive. Dive is interesting because it got buffed this this most recent patch and pretty significantly too. Basically, this would usually have been -7, so you would be able to to punish with 2K. They did reduce the recovery to the point where how minus it is it's gonna depend on how it hits. But generally speaking, you could always punish S dive with 2K. You could in this time because I hit it really high, but yeah, like this, like the realistic angles where I'm gonna hit it are not gonna be punishable. So yeah, in the last patch you could actually punish it with close sash a lot of the time. So it was really risky to do. Right now it's not so risky to do anymore. Because it's not that punishable, and she gets a mind game off of this, so she can always do like this, and then block. But she also has a follow up. So all her dives have like a hop follow up. So if I just let it display, she does this. But if I press the same button again, she does like a little hop. And this matters because I can use it to go over like you trying to challenge with a lower hitting button, and then like punish with JS. And get a pretty chunky punch, right? So she does have this mind game, although mid screen this is like in the corner, but mid screen she doesn't get that much over touch. Messing it up. She just says this, which is a hard knockdown, but yeah. This and easy. This to 5P. So you might try to press. You might start to press 5P to prevent her from doing the hop, right? And it does hit her out of it, but what I can do now instead is wait, yeah. I can use 2K to go under it. This is for 5Ps that
Yeah, not
that
relatable to me. Not relatable.
what character?
Biken.
Yeah.
Biken is actually you can
You get the low
hop.
version of 5P.
Yeah, you can actually hop over 5P. So this does still apply to Biken, but instead of pressing 5P to call out the hop, you have to press 6P.
Yeah.
Because yeah, the hop is gonna go over. It's gonna go over the 5P, but um, it's only minus. So K dive is only -2. Wait, I'm doing the hop. So she can go under 5Ps because most 5Ps will wave on crouchers. And on top of that, 2K also has some low profile. So she can try to keep her turn with it that way. So for most characters, you kind of have to press an RPS, play an RPS between pressing 5P or 2P, 2K, etc. To either catch the hop or to catch the 2K. This is also going to come down to playing the players. I would say generally maybe don't try to challenge the first time just to see what Dana likes to do. If she likes to do the hop, press 5P. If she tries to land and be cheeky and do 2K, you press 2K, 5P, whatever it is that your character wants to press. Although 2K will generally be better just because you get a knockdown. But some characters have a slower 2K. So it's gonna be your mileage may vary. And of course, it's also gonna beat 6B if I try to land into. It's also gonna beat 6B if I try to land into 2K. What? Oh no, wait. I'm doing the. Yeah, like that. So it does beat 6B. Some characters, Kai is actually a good example because he actually has an option that beats both. But I think Kai is the only character that I found that has an option that beats both, and 5K, and hop it beats both. I have to hop really high. It's still trade. So
Man, I'm telling you, Kai's good.
Kai's good.
Kai's a
yeah,
good
Kai.
character.
Yeah, I'm not telling you. Kai 5K is literally the anti-Eno button. It's so good against Eno. So this is, although I'm doing it out of a block string, this also applies in neutral, right? If you try to do, if I do a dive from neutral, I can. That was a really high hitting dive, right? I can hit you out of 2K. So this, although I was demonstrating in a block string, it still applies in neutral. And so let me switch from Kai because this is not gonna apply to Kai. But so I would say actually a good option to press. What's a good example? You take Nago. Nago has a really annoying 5K. So you can either just not press anything and see what Dino does, or you can try to press 5K because 5K 5K will be both 2K and hop, but it does lose to a different option. So as you can see, beats hop, and wait, I did hop again. Oops. Yeah, it beats 2K. But she does have she can 6P it, which will of course also be 5P and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I would actually say you should press 5K. Unless your 5K is really slow like Potemkin. But you should press 5K until she shows you she's willing to do 6P. Most Xenos actually don't know you can 6P here. So 5k is actually a pretty good bet. But of course you can beat 6B by just pressing 2k or anything that doesn't go over. You might even be able to press 2s if your 2s is fast enough to get a counter hit 2s and get big reward. But yeah, so 5k is pretty good. You can 6B it. Once you see her start 6B, and then you can do 2k. I think this is gonna apply to every character to 5k, besides like maybe Potemkin. So it's worth testing on your character. Try to make her do like this into 2k and then this into the hop. And this is gonna be something you want to test with your character. And generally, this is what happens when you block dive. Playing the RPS is actually not that big of a deal because she is still minus, and her ward is not as big as she like hits you with 2k 2d. She does get a knockdown, but it's still not the biggest deal to block dive. But once she gets metered, dive is like one of the best moves in the game because it just stay here and now you're getting mixed. So generally, if she has meter, what you want to do about dive is, like I said before, don't try to enter her because it's very fast. It hits low, so you need to be ready. You need to 6 it very early, and it's very difficult. And if you press it too early, you get foot punished. And then she can get a full combo. Blocking. Although it's not the most damaging combo, her RC combos are not the best. Yep. She does get a not being. She does get a hard knockdown. And some decent damage. So what you want to generally try to do, you want to try to make it whiff. If you see her jumping, try to jump, try to backdash, try to get out of the way, try to make it whiff and either wave punish or just start you offense. You don't want to let her just get away with this for free when she has meter because it's very, very strong. If you're ready for it, you can try to 6B it. Another reason you generally gonna be hard to 6B that she can always just charge it. And she can also actually combo off of it if she gets a full charge. But if you do see her charging and you haven't 6 speed, you can actually 6 speed this on the action. You can see her charging it. But generally speaking, the best thing to do is to try. In the past, it was just to block it if you didn't have meter because you could punish it. But now with the buffs, generally the play is to make it whiff. I think that's it for when it comes to dives. Any questions?
None here.
All right.
How do you deal with do you know the Sim matchup at all?
It's probably one of my worst matchups. I don't have the most experience, but I might know.
Alright, because I'm trying like right now I'm in the lab trying to lab out how to deal with dive on Sin, and all the options that you listed aren't really working for Sin. So I'm not sure if there's anything that can work or
So which option are you trying to beat the hop or land it to 2k?
the dive specifically. So I'm like doing JS JD into dive, and I don't think I can do anything about that.
After you block it or before you block it?
Both.
So JD into this, it's gonna be gapless, right? I can delay it slightly to make it a frame jump, and actually, as of this patch, she actually gets really good damage off of this, but it's kind of hard. Oh wait, it's K time. Okay. Yeah, she can go into 2H and she can do a lot of damage, but generally it's kind of like a hard frame jump to do. But it's most of the time it's gonna be gapless. So the mind games come after you block it. She always has like this into 2k, but that's something I'm gonna go over in a little bit. But yeah, the situation is generally after you block it, she has the option to hop over it, or she has the option to over it. But generally speaking, you can't mash. You can't if it's in a block string, you can't interrupt it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then the situation is, of course, after you block it, you generally want to press 5K, I would say.
Okay.
Until she does this. Once she does this, once she shows you she knows or she's willing to dive into 6P, then you start pressing stuff like 2K, 2P, etc. Something that can beat 6P. Anything else? All right, so I'll go with that. I can go into. Did I go over everything? I think I did. Check my notes real quick. I think that about covers it. I guess last thing about neutral. Eno has really good counter pokes, and 2H and 6B. In Frostlash. Frostlash is like entirely disjointed. 2H has a ton of disjoint. So if the Eno is
neutral, it's just pain.
yeah, so generally against Eno, you don't want to be just dashing in because of that. If she's pressing this. Because she gets really good reward off of this on counter hit. On regular hit, not as much, but yeah, generally she has very good counter pokes with huge disjoints. The only thing I guess nerfing it is she can't just run into it. I can always do this, but it's not really fair. So generally don't want to just blindly run into her. It's not the easiest thing to whiff punish, but if you see her pressing this, you should be trying to whiff punish her, or at least just store your offense. But I don't think there's much to go. It's just really good counter pokes. So just be careful with that. And with that, so offense. Offense is like the big thing that makes is where her Harvard Dash can really shine, right? Because she gets instant access to overhead. She can do JS, she can do GH, she can do a lot of things. And generally the way her pressure works, she has once you block JS, she is +6, so she can do a lot of things. So if you try to mash, she can go into claw slash, which gets a huge combo. And then she can do the classic mix, where she goes into JD or she goes into 2K. She can try to, if you're respecting her, she can reset the situation by just doing JS over and over again. You have to mash out of this. And yeah, she has a couple like cheeky ways to try to reset the situation. And it's something that she's gonna try to want to do. Because, like I said, if you block all the way to the end of the block string, Dive does have the mind games, but the risk reward is not great. And if you block the low string, she ends in S-stroke, which is going to be punishable 90% of the time. Especially in a block string. This is not far enough where she's safe. She has to usually set the distance where it's going to be safe. So her block strings are fairly short. Like if you block this, she doesn't have any really good options. She only has dive. She can try to land into 2K. It's not that great. If you block 2K, she can like do 2K 2D, but that's it. 2K 2D S stroke, and then she's punishable. 2K 6P, then she's punishable. She does have 6H, which does space it out, and on a more advanced level, you can IB the second hit because the timing is always going to be the same. Because it is -8, but that's all more advanced. But generally speaking, it's gonna space her out in a way where basically back in neutral. Although she does have cancel options still, right? She can do like S stroke if you try to press a button. She can if you're a Spectre, she can try to go back in. She can do Note, which, if you're ready for it, you can stop on reaction. But for example, if you try to jump, she can aim it up and make you block it. Or just aim it forward if you're sleeping on the wheel and you have to block it and she just go back in. But generally speaking, but even that, if you can AB it, the situation is not great. It's only a decent situation if you don't AP it. But that's not that big of a deal, generally, to AP it. So that's generally the thing. Although she has very strong mix, very easy access to overhead, if you do block it, she's not in a great situation. If you block this, she's punishable. If you block this, she gets an RPS, but it's not really that good. Generally, it's a little bit gimmicky. If I'm being the dive thing, it's a little bit gimmicky. Because if the opponent knows what they're doing, she's forced to have to commit to 6p, and 6p is just like, this is not a good situation to be in because 6p is, I think, -7, and if she tries to cancel into S-stroke, she can't make it safe. She could be really cheeky if you really see on the wheel, try to do Note. Although Tickle really likes to do this, and he was able to hit Raza with it. So I guess it does work, but this is pretty reactable. I think Note is something like 28 frames of startup, so you can definitely react to it and just interrupt it. You can also do this off of 2KGD, but still she's very close to you, so it's not very hard to top on a reaction. Here it's a little bit harder because you need to press a farther reaching button. But generally it's a very, like, I would say Note at the end of blockchain. It's kind of like a gimmick. But it's also, I wouldn't say it's the most common thing. So only try to be looking out for it if the shows you that they're willing to do it. And that's gonna generally be the structure, right? Off of JS, the double overhead is gonna be JSJD. The high-low is gonna be 2D. And she can always just start with the 2K. Let me on the back there. Right, she can do like straight into 2K. She can do FD to land quickly and go into 2K, and that's generally the options that she has. So what do you do about it? Generally speaking, if you can, I would generally say that fuzzy block is a concept that's fairly advanced, but I think I think it's fairly essential for, I mean, I feel like, I guess, floor 9, floor 10, it's probably not the biggest deal, but once you're celestial, I think you want to learn this matchup, I think it's fairly important. It's not as scary as it seems. Let me actually switch to, so I can show you how you can learn fuzzy block, because it's fairly important. I haven't played this game in a while, so probably. So,
I believe.
I'll try if I can still do it, but we'll see. It's not that complicated. Once you get the timing, you get a feel for it. And it's always something you could just practice in every match. But generally speaking, her mix is after she does JS, the JD comes later. It's not slow, but it comes slower than 2K. So if you don't know, fuzzy block is basically a thing you can do where you block in a certain timing where it can cover both options. So in the case of, if you block high, then low, then high in a certain timing, what will happen is you will block both this and this, because the timing will cover both. They don't hit it at the same time. So actually, let me see if I can do this. So one recording is GSGD, and second recording is GS2K. And then what I'm gonna try to do is I'm gonna be trying to block high, low, high, and a timing that will block both. So I blocked JD. Oh, did I mess it up? Yeah, I did mess up the second recording. Let me fix this real quick. Uh, Weird. Oh, I wasn't saving it. Silly me. Okay. I need to press the button again. Okay, there you go. um, I messed it up right there. I blocked the 2K. And as you can see, I'm doing the same input. I'm doing high, low, high, and it blocks both options. I can even set, not gonna go through the effort, but I could even set the recording of the dummy to do this, and it will always block this mix-up. And it's not very complicated. Like I said, you just record one recording of her doing JSJD, and the other recording of her doing JS2K, like I just showed. And just set it to play at random, and then just do this, right? Until you like get a feel for the timing. It's gonna be a little bit tricky at first, but once you get the feeling for the timing, it's really not that bad. And then try to apply it in a real match. The reason you want to do this is, of course, you will always block the layer 1 mix-up. So JSJD and JS2K. What this forces Eno to do is to do anti-fuzzy options. And when she does those options, it opens her up in other ways. So one way she can beat fuzzy is instead of doing JS2K, she does JS, micro walk into 2K. So, and this will hit the opponent at the time where they block high. She can also do a meaty 2K. Right? Which they will on wake up the fuzzy block is to do high, low, high. And doing a meaty 2K is gonna beat that. But Ino's whole thing is she gets a safe jump off of basically every knockdown just she has. After recovery. Where's Fortissimo? I'm a little bit rusty, so I might mess it up. Right? I was able to block this. If you don't know what a safe jump is, basically it's just a jumping attack, a meaty jumping attack that they do on someone wake up that recovers fast enough that you can block if they try to do a reversal. But because she can always get a safe jump off of her knockdowns, the safe jump is going to be fuzzyable. If she tries to do meaty 2K, it's no longer a safe jump. And also meaty 2K is actually pretty hard to do because it's only 2 active frames. So she either has to like space her stuff out and do it in a range outside of like grab range, or she has to have like really good timing. Like it's a 2-frame window to actually have it hit meaty. There are setups she could do like this where it auto times it, but generally it's very hard. So doing a meaty 2K is fairly hard. Like you have to space it, which can be a little hard. So this is like one way, and so this is an example of how it opens her up, where she has to break your fuzzy. Well, because she can no longer safe jump. Another way that she can break it is by doing a delayed high. So instead of doing JS, she does JD. The delay in the JD will hit you while you try to block low. But it's also JD is a weaker situation. You're not plus. You're -2, I think. If they block JD, so you can't do like frame traps. You can. Your only option is basically to go into dive. So it's not a great situation. But if you force her, but if you're fuzzing, you're basically forcing her to try to do this kind of stuff. And like if you try to do this into this, right? JS into micro JD, you can grab her out of it or mash out of it. It's no longer a frame trap, which it would normally be. So it opens her up in various ways. And once you can fuzz her, it's good to look into the options that you can. Oh yeah, and if she tries to do JD, you can 6P it. So it opens her up in a lot of ways if you can fuzz. So that's why I say it's so important that you can fuzz it. There's a lot of things, I would say most things that you can fuzzy block, it's not that big of a deal. But it's so central to our offense. The mind games that you play against the person who can fuzzy block and person who can fuzzy block are so different that I would say it's almost essential that you know how to fuzzy block, and and like I said, if the person is fuzzy blocking, it forces to have to do things that creates gaps and leaves her a lot more vulnerable. Another option is that she can do to beat fuzzy is to do the Fshiki, but it's very low reward, so she doesn't want to do this. And if you just crouch, it whiffs. So it leaves her in not the greatest situation. So that's why it's so important to fuzzy, to learn the fuzzy. And it's not that bad. Like I said, you just set the recording a couple minutes. After a while, you get the feel. Once you have the feel for it, you try it in real matches. You probably fail for it a little bit, but once you can do it, it makes Eno's life so much harder. Because it's just that important. And besides fuzzy, a couple other important things to know about our offense. That don't necessarily require the fuzzy. So like I said, so one of the things she can do like JS into close dash. This is a frame trap. And from this you gotta play an RPS. Where she has +1. So she can try to like dash back in. Or she can, if you try to start a pass, she can go into 2H, which is huge reward.
Mm-hmm.
So like we said, the reason that's like a good example of when you want to FD, at least the first hit, is that if you hit it, if you FD the first hit, it will usually make her get frost slash, and she can't. Frost slash is pretty minus, so she can't like dash in after it.
Yeah, that's huge.
And also close slash, she can jump cancel, which is not an option that she has off of frost slash. So this would be like counterplay number 2. Counterplay number 1 fuzzy block. Counterplay number 2 is gonna be FD the first hit. You can try to FD the rest, but it's not as important because just FDing the first hit will make a lot of things whiff. And it's already like most of the way. The rest is probably not worth the meter cost. I think this one's pretty simple. Oh yeah, any questions about fuzzy block or FD?
Nope. I think that makes sense.
All right. And then the third thing, FD is pretty simple, right? Is mashing. As a character, she's a character you have to mash against because like I said, her blockchains are not great. She doesn't want to reach the end of her blockchain, so she will try to reset. So do something that if she hits you with JS, she's back at the beginning of her offense. So she will try to do things like this, do JS, or this, right? And she can like do a mix from this, or just dash, right? So she wants to constantly be trying to reset you. And because of that, it's very important that you mash against her. And it's also, of course, something that you have to play the player. Everything is just doing this, right? Just not leaving any gaps. You don't want to mash, but generally most Xenos will try to reset. And if she tries to, although she is plus after you block AJS, the gap is pretty big. So, I think the startup of JS is 18 frames. Wait, that's not zero recovery. So it's a pretty big gap. So you can. Hello, dummy. Oh, okay.
Today we learned it's actually a true
Yeah.
block string. New patch.
Yeah. No, they're scared. But as you can see, if I try to reset, what will happen is this. And actually, if I let me actually set the dummy so I can. So, oops. If I mash, because it's an air hit, it's a counter hit. You can actually go into close slash. And if you can go into close slash, most characters, I think, right, can get a knockdown, get pretty good damage. So you should be ready to convert your air hit 5p or whatever it is that you press. You can usually go into close slash. I think every character can go into close slash after that kind of hit. And you get pretty good reward if you mash out of pressure. And because of that, it's and it's actually, a lot of people say that one of our biggest nerfs was actually the counter hit effect on lights, which used to not be a thing. Like when you counter hit someone with a light, right, like this didn't used to be a thing, but because it is a thing now, it's a lot easier to confirm that you like successfully mashed out and be able to confirm into close hash or something that does a lot more damage than just 5p, right? And that's why it's the risk reward tends to be pretty good to match against because usually when you mash out, you're mashing out of like a air hit, and you should be ready to convert it. Don't just do this, right? You should be able to take it. Although even if you just do this, you do get a soft knockdown, so you do get a lot of advantage. But generally, you want to be able to get a good conversion off of it.
You should be able to like 5p, 5p, 6p too, which I think gives you at least the bigger knockdown.
Yeah, you can also always go into command normals, but yeah, that's generally what gets. She doesn't get the best knockdown. Maybe some characters 6p is a better route, but generally going to close slash I think tends to be more optimal. And so we know that mashing is fairly strong against So when do we actually mash? Like I said, you want to be mashing her resets. So if she does this into this, anywhere where she tries to dash back in is a reset. So the common place where I'll try to reset is like after JS, right? I'll just do JS over and over again. Something that you might not see a lot of beginner do, but it's very common at not necessarily high level, but above like beginner level, is JS into close slash, which is a frame trap in itself.
Yeah, that's scary.
And she can do this, and then into JS. And once you start pressing, she can always go into 2H, which is pretty chunky. Right? She can get a lot of damage off of this. So this is why I'll see people using this string. Because if you bite into it, she gets really good reward. So it is a little scary. but generally, so it is an OPS that you have to play. If you block close sash, otherwise she can just do this forever. So Inu is a character that you really have to match against. She also generally doesn't do as much, especially mid screen. Like the reward she actually gets for frame trapping is actually not that big. So for example, if I go into 2K, right, she gets a knockdown, but it's not the most damage, especially for Strive standards. She has like bigger reward frame traps, like 6H. She gets a bit more damage. Close Sash is pretty chunky, but this is kind of like a hard confirm. So usually it's gonna be something like this. It missed for some reason, but mid screen her frame traps are not that scary. So it is the risk reward for you mashing is actually it's not necessarily in your favor because she is still in control, right? It is her offense, but the risk for mashing is not as bad. So you want to know, especially the player that you're playing, you want to try to observe where they like to mash. So if they try to do this right into JS into JS, you want to do this. Of course, you can get frame trapped, but it is the RPS you have to play. She can get another common place, like I said, is cross sash. Close sash. Oops. She can do like she can sometimes go over certain buttons with like jump cancel. In that case, you want to press 6P, but yeah, usually I think you're gonna hit it. She can do like JS into 2K into. This is it's pretty low, but she can technically like do 2K like this, right? It's kind of gimmicky, but yes, you always want to be trying to lose it. So that's why it's so important that you mash. At a more advanced level, a really good strategy against Xeno is to fuzzy mash. If you can fuzzy block and you can fuzzy mash at the same time, it's actual. So if you do the three things, you fuzzy block, you FD the first hit, right? When I mean first hit, I mean like meaty, and you can fuzzy block. It's so hard to play against because fuzzy mash is, for example, let me set a recording. If I do this, which is a frame trap, and oh, I didn't save again. So if I try to mash, oops. If I try to mash, okay, rise on a plane. Okay. I get counter hit if I try to mash there. But if I fuzzy mash, if I just delay just a little bit my 5P, nothing comes out. I don't get frame trapped. Right? But it is fast, but because the gap for doing resets is so big, then my fuzzy mash will beat it. So if you can fuzzy mash, it's very, very strong against Xeno. Again, she has to do like very big delays. She has to do like, let me turn this off. She has to do like something like this, where she leaves very big gaps, which will lose to normal mashing. Like, right? Same thing with like fuzzy block, like walk up 2K. And those are the things that will beat fuzzy block, fuzzy mash, mixing up all the fuzzies. So on our level, it goes beyond mashing and it goes into fuzzy mashing. And if you can fuzzy mash, it's also useful. It's very useful against Xeno. I think fuzzy mashing is generally a good thing to learn. Like fuzzy block is more like specific to Xeno, but fuzzy block is like a general skill. I mean, fuzzy mash is a general skill that I think you want to learn. So just to recap, you wanna against you wanna mash quite a bit. Not always, because of course she does have frame traps. She can make it hurt, but it is something that more than average you want to be mashing against Um, and at a higher level, she can fuzzy mash. Fuzzy mash is so strong. Second, you want to FD the first hit, especially the meaty. You do this into the meaty. You want to FD that. And third, fuzzy block. Fuzzy block is so strong. The mind games that open once you can fuzzy block is just incredibly powerful.
Mhm.
The mind games, Ino's offense is so different at a high level. At a little low level, it's basically just guessing. Oh, you block high, okay. I do 2K. You block low, I do GD. I do this, into this, into this, and you always in my mix. But at a high level, because of fuzzy block, the mind games end up becoming: am I gonna fuzzy block or am I not gonna fuzzy block? Because if I do this is gonna beat fuzzy block. But I can always just commit to a low block. Right, the walk up 2K. So the mind games end up becoming: am I gonna fuzzy block? Am I gonna mash? Because like I said, this opens up a pretty big gap that you can grab her out of. And it opens her up in so many ways that the mind games become very different. And it basically takes you above the level where you're just guessing on her mix. There's obviously still guesses that you have to make. Look, any offense, especially in Guilty Gear, you kind of just have to guess. But the guessing is a lot less, I guess, oppressive. So that's why it's very, very useful to be able to fuzzy block. And I think that about covers it. Any questions?
Think you have a incredible ability to answer my questions before I ask them. I was literally gonna ask the like everyone says just pick a god and mash, but like I did never knew when to pick a god and mash, and now I do.
Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah, it's. I mean, if you can fuzzy block, you just kind of have to guess. Just
Yeah.
pick, commit to something, and just do that. Um, and but if you can fuzzy mash, you just take the offense. In my opinion, it becomes a lot more. The mind games, I think, become a lot more interesting. Without fuzzy block, I think it's not as interesting. You just make them guess over and over again.
Mhm.
Of course, with fuzzy block, you still make them guess, but I think the mind games are a lot more interesting. If they can layer their defense where they're doing like the three things that I said, like fuzzy block, FD, and fuzzy mash, it's so hard to open those people up. It's incredibly hard. So if you can do those things, it's you make Ino's life very difficult. Like I would say, some people don't play and say you can OS her entire mix. It's not true, but you can OS. But you can OS a lot of things.
Mhm.
So it does make it is like one of the reasons she's not as strong at our level, just because she has to commit so much harder to beat people doing OSs. Like even though you saw it, because she has the one of the ways she can beat fuzzy block is by doing F shaky. But F shaky only works as her setting. So this is the F shaky or the fuzzy overhead, right? So she can do this, and do this, and dive. But if they crouch and they get hit, this will this will whiff.
I hate that.
So at Evo Japan, you actually saw Daoud doing this a lot and actually dying because he was trying to do this. And this was all because he was just trying to open people's defenses up, or people who know how to fuzzy block. And for trying to open them up, he just died. There was so many times where he just lost the match because, like, he actually hit the person, but just because they were crouching, it whiffed and he just died. So she just has to commit so much more. She has to take such much bigger risks if you have good defense. It's the reason I say it's so essential that you're able to fuzzy block, because you unlock a much more interesting The mind games that you unlock are a lot more interesting, in my opinion. I think that covers about everything. I went over round start. I went over neutral. Went over offense. I guess very quickly. She doesn't have any like unique defensive options, but just very quickly, like her most unique defensive options is she can dive out. It's pretty important to be able to deal with. Um, if if you see someone like double jumping, trying to dive out, and like the is like doing this over and over again, the way you deal with it is generally you can't anti-air it. Let me switch the recordings. Generally, the way you want to deal with it is if you see them start to do this, what you want to do is not try to enter, because if you try to enter, a couple of things can happen. If you're too close, your 6B is just gonna whiff. You can even do the other side. It has it, but this is very rare for this to work. You will usually just whiff. So the best thing you can do is if you haven't stopped her from doing it. So I mean, obviously you can just hit her like frame jump or do something that beats jumps. But if she's already jumped, sometimes you can like air grab. Those are very hard call. You like have to. I think you have to commit. So the best thing to do is if you see her do this, is just let her whiff and just be ready to whiff punish. So I can do like just dash in, start my pressure. Right? Because she whiffed. It's generally not going to be a good idea for her to try to mash up to that. With Athena, it's a little difficult just because of the way her dash works, but you can also try to whiff punish. Yeah, whiff punish right there. So you can let her whiff, walk back, and be ready to whiff punish. If your character has a run, it's going to be easier, but I mean, even with just walking, I can get a whiff punish. Generally speaking, you don't want to try to enter it. If you have a very hard call, you can try to air grab it. You don't want to let it whiff and just whiff punish. So that's, I guess, like her most unique defensive option. That specific matchups she doesn't quite have more options. Like stroke is kind of like a defensive option, unique defensive option that she has. But generally, the thing that like the main like knowledge check that she has is just this. You can always just like do this. Also, if you're ready for it, and just make you block it. Like if you're ready to like catch the double jump, she can like just do a single jump and make you block this. If she has meter, she gets to see it. That's like more high level, more like higher level mind games. At a low level, this is like a huge knowledge check. So being able to deal with it, just let it whiff and whiff punish, or just start your offense. Don't let her get away with this. Don't like try to 6v it and whiff. She doesn't, like I said, defensively. She's not known for her defense. In fact, she's known for not having access to dash block. So if you have something that loses to dash block, for example, Bridget, dash block is pretty good against her, but can't dash block it. So if you have things that lose to dash block that are pretty weak to dash block, you can do it a lot more freely against just because she can do it. And yeah, her main like defensive Abare mash button is gonna be 2K. So that's like the one that you have to watch for. She's not gonna. Her 2P has like no range. It's actually so sad. Yeah. So 2K is like the main one to watch for. Sometimes 5B, but not much to say about defense. I think that about covers everything. I think I'm a little over time. I don't remember where I started, but
hey,
I
that's
think I'm a
okay.
little over time.
That's all right. We like the there's some characters that you just know are going to be big info characters.
Yeah.
That's completely all right. Well, before I let you go, I got at least one question that is one that we ask for everybody is why did you pick Eno and why do you still play Eno?
So So interestingly, the although Strive is my first fighting game that I actually got very deeply, that I actually really got into, it was technically Plus R because I already owned Plus R. Like I got it in a bundle years ago, in some humble bundle, like 2017 or something. So I happened to have it on my Steam account, and I was interested in Guilty Gear Strive. So I thought, okay, I already have like the old game. I already have like Plus R. I'm gonna try it out. So I tried it out. Of course, I picked Soul because it's like the main character. I didn't know what to pick. I just picked Soul. Try to do the arcade mode or the story mode, or what it is in Plus R. And in that game, the final boss is Xeno. And I just could not beat her. Plus R, because her like recovers. Not only her life recovers, she does also a lot more damage, and she has like unique attack. So like Megalo, like this, right? This is actually a reference to her boss version, where she has like, where this is like a move that's exclusive to the boss fight, and it's like it has like a couple patterns, and you need to know how to avoid it. Uh, but yeah, just being stuck at that boss battle, I was like, this character is actually pretty cool. And I started playing her in Plus R, although she's really fucking difficult in Plus R. And when it came to Strive, I ended up deciding her because I just, the boss battle, just seeing her flying around, just doing this shit and this shit, and just uh, and just swinging the guitar all around. I was like, that's actually so sick. So when I came around to playing Strive, I ended up picking her up. And another thing is that kind of like sealed the deal is that her name is actually, so Eno um is a homage to Brian Eno. It is spelled differently, but it's pronounced the same. It's Eno instead of Ino. But Brian Eno is like one of my favorite like musicians, producers, very famous for like Talking Heads and all that. And I was like, so that's one thing. And her visual design is based off of Sheena Ringo, like a '90s rock, alternative rock, Japanese artist. She's like very like important for like J rock. Very influential. Very So huge fan of both those artists. So that's kind of like the thing that sealed the deal. Like the music nerd in me just
Heck yeah.
couldn't resist it.
And the visual design one always gets me. I see the tweet float
Of
around
course.
every now and then. It's like one for one. Like the mole is the same and the guitar is the same. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, I see you.
Yeah, the blue, the greenish, like the cyan guitar. It's like the exact same. It's a very explicitly design off of her. So and also like Daisuke is like clearly a fan because if you listen to the Batman theme, the part after like the intro where it has like I think it's a sitar, but it's like traditional like Indian instrument, like the droning in the back. Like that section is actually, I guess the nice way is gonna be it's just a homage. It's like a very obvious reference to a Sheena Ringo song. Like if we listen to it side by side, it's identical. I can post it in the chat in a little bit, but it's just so it's very clear that Daisuke is a fan. So there's no doubt that
Heck yeah.
it is based off of her.
Well, awesome. We'll go ahead and wrap up there. Thank you so much, Squoid. I think we have
very much for having me.
Yeah.
Sorry for the technical issues, but
hey, no worries.
We made it.
No worries at all. Glad to have you. We got a couple more that we're gonna be wrapping up tomorrow. We got Kafka bright and early. I say bright and early, but that's just for me. It's gonna be 11 a.m. Central. On Sunday tomorrow, and Kafka was my one who was like, all right, listen, give me a 2-hour block because we're about to get real deep into the Zato shit. So
actually, I should have asked for it too, but it ended up being a 2-hour block whether I asked for it or not.
Hey, no worries. We leave a little bit of leeway time regardless. But yeah, thanks so much. I'm gonna end the recording.
Thank you.
bye.